Welcome to the Unfinished Woman podcast. This is a space for women in transition, women who feel the shift, sense the becoming, and know the old version no longer fits, even if the next one isn't fully clear yet. I'm your host, Dr. T. Carter, the transition architect. Here, we talk about clarity before movement, identity before assignment, and faith led becoming, not rushing the process, but honoring the season you're in. This isn't a podcast about having it all together. It's about learning how to move forward without abandoning yourself in the process. If you're in the in between, not who you used to be, not yet who you're becoming, you belong here.
Hey, welcome to the Unfinished Woman podcast. We're in a series called The Myth of High Capacity, and this is episode 4, When Rest Feels Unsafe. Some women slow down and feel relief, but other women slow down and feel uneasy. If rest makes you uncomfortable, if stillness feels unfamiliar, if even the thought of slowing down creates anxiety instead of peace, I believe that this conversation is for you. So I want to welcome you back to the Unfinished Woman podcast. I'm Dr. T, the translation architect, and today we're going to talk about what it means when rest doesn't feel safe and why, if that's your experience, there's nothing wrong with you. Many women, exhaustion isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is what happens when the noise stops. Because when things get quiet, thoughts surface, emotions rise, memories whisper, and your body finally has space to speak. And if you learned early in your childhood that stillness came with risk, your system learned that it had to stay alert in order to survive. And in those cases, rest won't feel restorative. It may actually feel threatening, not because you're lazy or because you lack discipline, but because your body learned how to survive before it ever learned how to feel safe. That's why for many high capacity women, business became protection, not because we love pressure, but because emotion kept us from feeling what we didn't have space to process. Staying busy means that you're staying in control. It can mean that you're staying needed, or it can even mean that you're staying ahead of pain. And in those cases, slowing down feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar often feels unsafe. But I want to remind you that rest isn't laziness. No, rest is regulation. Your nervous system adapted to what it needed to in order to endure. Your body learned to stay ready. Your mind learned to anticipate. And that adaptation, it helped you survive. And survival patterns don't automatically turn off when your circumstances change. So even when life slows down, you may find that your body is still bracing. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It simply means that your body is loyal. And this is something that I had to learn myself because there was a time where I thought that if I took time to rest, things would collapse. If I stopped, everything would fall apart. And that the stillness would expose things that I really wasn't ready to face. So, in order to avoid that, I stayed productive, I stayed helpful, and I definitely stayed busy. Not because I was thriving, but because movement felt safer than being present in the moment. And it took time for me to really realize and accept that rest wasn't something that I had to earn. No, rest was something that I had to relearn. I had to realize that rest doesn't require permission, it simply requires trust. I had to trust that nothing bad would happen if I were to pause, and that I was still valuable even if I wasn't producing, and that I could exist without the need to perform. But that kind of trust, it didn't come all at once. It came slowly and gently. And so I just want to give you something that helped me as I was on my journey. And that is something that I call rest repatterning, because it's not about forcing yourself to relax. For me, it was about teaching my body something new. And the first thing that I had to do was to acknowledge truth without judgment and just admit that the reason that rest felt unsafe was not because I was unsafe or in an unsafe environment, but it was because my body learned that stillness once came with risk. And that statement, that realization for me, helped to remove the shame and the frustration of not being able to rest. I had to realize that I wasn't being resistant and fighting rest. I had just been conditioned that rest was not safe. And so I also had to redefine what rest meant for me. Because for me, rest doesn't mean stopping everything. It actually means that I'm stopping the process of self abandonment. It's about allowing myself to exist without fixing, without managing, or performing. And this was a slow process. So, what worked for me, I'll share with you. It's something that I call micro rest. I'm not talking about like a vacation or retreat, but really about small, quiet moments of safety. Maybe 3 to 5 minutes of quiet or a walk without urgency, where you're really present in the moment. Sitting in quiet without scrolling through a screen, or taking the time to breathe and really pay attention to your breath without multitasking or doing other things. It helped me to teach my body that I can slow down and still be okay. And in those moments, I had to observe without judgment, that when I would pause to really notice what showed up. Was I feeling restless or anxious or guilty? A array of emotions came. And that doesn't mean that rest wasn't working. It just meant that in that stillness, something was being revealed. And the hardest part for me was letting that emotion pass without having to fix it. Understanding that stillness and rest is not an emergency. And so I just want to encourage you, if that resonates with you, that you don't have to rest perfectly. You just need to rest honestly. And so your action for this week is simple, maybe a little bit challenging, but very simple. To rest without explanation and practice it. So you don't end up being, you're not in a situation where you're earning rest or you have to justify your rest or apologize because you need to rest, but to simply practice rest without explanation, and to practice being present in the moment, even if it's brief or even if it feels awkward, because this is how we're going to relearn that rest is safe, slowly, consistently, and gently. And so before we close out this episode, I just want to say to the woman who may feel uneasy even listening to this, that you're not behind, you're not failing, and you are definitely not weak. You're learning to exist in a new way. This new way will not require constant survival. And since that takes courage, so I'm so proud of you for even making a decision to show up today. So the next episode is going to be the final episode of the Myth of High Capacity series. And we'll close this series out by talking about what it looks like to rebuild intentionally. We're gonna title that one Redefining Capacity on Purpose. But for now, I just want to remind you this: you are unfinished, but you're not unworthy. Learning how to rest is not weakness, it's wisdom. So I want to encourage you again to be gentle with yourself this week, to give yourself grace this week, and to do something for yourself while you're also doing something for the other people in your life. So learn how to rest without guilt. So I hope that that was helpful. I hope that that was encouraging to you. If there's other questions you have, or you want more insight, or say, "Hey, I would like for you to go deeper here," feel free to send me a message on any of my social media platforms. I want to make sure that this information is relevant and impactful. So this week, again, your action is to rest, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Unfinished Woman. I love ya. Bye.
Before you go, take a breath. Remember, you are not behind. You are not late. And nothing about you is broken. You are unfinished on purpose. And God is still shaping you. If today's conversation resonated, stay connected. Follow the podcast. Share this episode with another woman who's becoming. And come back for more conversations rooted in clarity, identity, and transition. Every step forward doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be aligned. Honor your season, trust your becoming, and I'll see you next time on the Unfinished Woman podcast.